Welcome to a very, very special live edition of Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, August 30th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game in 3 days, the game against Michigan in 87 days. Tony Gerdeman joins me here live at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. And Tony, it's the news we've all been waiting for. Ryan Day has named his starting kicker. We were there. There we go. We're right there together. Yes. Ryan Day has named his starting kicker. Jaden Fielding will be kicking for the Buckeyes. Tony, I don't think that's actually the news. That it is not the news that I put in the headline for this. It is probably also not the news that people are most interested in specifically.
But you got to get the clickbait out there about the kicker.
Yes. Kickbait. How about that? I'm workshopping it. All right. Enough. Let's talk quarterback. It did not take long for the news to come out. Dave Biddle, our buddy from Bucknuts, traditionally asked the first question, and he got out something like, "Ryan, are you ready to?" And Ryan Day just said, "Yes, Dave." And the room just erupted in laughter. Everyone knew what the question was. We kind of knew what the answer was going to be if you go back and listen to some of our recent shows. Kyle McCord going to be starting for Ohio State on Saturday, but he will probably not be the only quarterback you see on Saturday for Ohio State.
Yeah, the plan is to play Devin Brown. Ryan Day said that they'll figure out this week based on kind of how practices go, how to do that. But I think the key is that he did also say both players will be given an opportunity in terms of, like, we're not going to bench you for an incompletion, so don't worry about that. So I think Kyle McCord is, I think he's going to have quite a long time, a good amount of time to play against Indiana. And will Devin Brown's time come in the second half? Will it come if things are going really well and Ohio State's up 28-0 in the second quarter? I think time and circumstance will dictate what happens, but the plan is to play two. And really, as Ryan Day has said all camp long, that's the only way how guys are, how good the guys are, is by seeing them play in the games.
Well, time and change will surely show who that quarterback is and when. But what was interesting was Ryan Day talked about cameras over there. Ryan Day talked about the fact that this is a little bit unprecedented for him, that this is not the way he typically has done business. It's kind of probably not the way he typically would choose to do business. I think if it was really like a super, super clear, this guy is absolutely 100% a million miles ahead of the other guy. This is a little bit new and different. And this feels like one of those things where if it's 28-0 in the second quarter, it's probably, everything is hunky-dory and everyone's happy. If Ohio State goes 3-and-out twice in the first quarter, I know Twitter isn't real life, but it feels like, it's probably the way this looks on Saturday could go one of two very different ways.
Yeah, and that's part of the whole emotional aspect of Ryan Day telling the guys, you will have opportunity to make mistakes. He knows it's not going to go perfectly, but once you're out there and dealing with it, you still have to go win a game. And so that's going to be the interesting aspect to watch, is to see the adversity, any kind of struggle that goes on. But again, you've got two guys that can do it. And Ryan Day even said Devin Brown agreed that Kyle McCord won the job in a fair fight. So you've got to give the guy who won it at this point, the gap is sizable enough that he's going to get the nod. You've got to give him an opportunity to show on the field what you've seen in practice. And that may mean, first games are traditionally slow starts, so you've got to get through that and find a rhythm. And as a guy who takes notes during all of this, and I hate spelling rhythm was mentioned a lot today, and it really, really slowed me down.
And, consistency, too, was another thing that Ryan Day talked about. And when you're out of rhythm, consistency you can be inconsistent. That's kind of what that looks like. So, yeah, that's going to be really interesting to track. And, and then, okay, does this look like a situational thing where Devin Brown comes in? Do they pick, hey, you're gonna be the second half quarterback, or is this, hey, just like the way Tony Alford does it? Tony Alford generally does his running back rotation basically by vibes. It's just, here's who's going to be the next guy, and at least that's the way he's described it to us in the past. So it'll be interesting to see how they sort of mesh that all together. Other position groups we do need to talk about. Let's do the other big, I think, this is, again, not probably a big shock if you've heard Tony and I talk about who we're expecting to see start, but the offensive line, we got the offensive line, I think, that we were expecting to have for week 1.
Yeah, and that's Josh Simmons at left tackle, Josh Fryer at right tackle. Of course, the guards, Donovan Jackson and Matt Jones, left and right. And then confirmed Carson Hinsman is the starter at center. Victor Cutler is there. You know, he continues to mention him, but it's always been from day one back in the spring, it has been Carson Hinsman. And so that's why we've been saying that over and over. And through fall camp, every time we saw him, he's with the ones and he will stay with the ones. And sure, there are concerns, but if you're going to be starting a first-year guy, a redshirt freshman at center, when you have Donovan Jackson and Matt Jones on either side of him, that's about as good of position as you could have that redshirt freshman be in.
Yeah, those are guys who they're big, strong, veteran guys who you're not going to show. You know, Matt Jones is not going to see anything new. Matt Jones has seen it all since he's been at Ohio State, so he has a new tackle to his right and a new center to his left, and for Donovan Jackson, it's just the other direction. But those are guys who, hey, there's someone coming up. Coming up the A gap, get a slide inside and help with that. Hey, there's someone coming outside. Okay, got to slide out and help with that. Having those veteran pieces sort of in the middle to kind of be the glue that holds the new guys together, that's probably not a bad thing. Speaking of new guys, he talked about a bunch of different true freshmen. He was asked about true freshmen who might get to play. I noticed an incredible overlap with Alex Gleitman's reporting on BuckeyeHuddle.com from a few weeks ago about the true freshmen who were looking good during fall camp. It was like, how about that? What a coincidence that is. Carnell Tate was he is in that conversation on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, first guy to lose his black stripe this year, but this is a wide receiver unit where, what did he say, 5 or 6 guys who they are kind of feeling pretty good about it. Sounds like Carnell Tate is one of those. This, that is very early for a guy to be in that kind of a position.
Yeah, the 5 or 6 guys has me wondering who is 5 and who is 6, because we know the 4. It's the 3 starters and Xavier Johnson. So 5 and 6 is Jaden Ballard and Carnell Tate, I'm guessing. But who is 5, who is 6? Because it was definitely 5, and then it was like, well, maybe 5 or 6. So I wonder what order that is in, but I fully expect we will see him. I wonder if you see him in the first half, will you be like, oh, okay, they're serious?
Yeah, I'm expecting to see him in the first half. I mean, the way they rotate wide receivers, you're going to have a guy run a. Well, that's you're going to have a guy running. I don't necessarily think he's getting a whole drive in the first half. That would be a wow to me. Sometimes a guy is going to run 50 yards downfield, and then they're going to take him off the field for a snap or two, and you bring in another guy. To be a true freshman who's just the guy who's going in after the guy runs down the field, that's significant enough. If he's in there for significant reps, boy, that's really something. I don't know what the way the shot was framed up. When we started, there were a couple wide receivers back behind us. Marvin Harrison, shockingly, out here with the machine, shooting footballs, cramming for his final exam. Probably hasn't done that much all season, all summer.
Got to get him in before the game, so I'm ready. Yeah.
Speaking of people who are probably in that top 5 or 6 for the wide receivers, Marvin Harrison, probably going to see him out there on Saturday. The running back room, it's always interesting when you hear Ryan Day talk about a position group, because sometimes the order, he'll talk about guys in a certain way, but sometimes it's just the order he says name. You can see him mentally going down the depth chart. And it feels like we had a pretty clear indication where guys are. They have got 5 talented returning players in that room. I feel like we have a much better sense now. This really is where guys are.
Yeah, and we've been saying for a while, Travion Henderson being the number 1, that was the case, as well as said the adjectives he uses. Like Travion was like a great camp or outstanding. Mayan Williams was very good. It was like it was a notch below. And then obviously Mayan Williams was the second running back mentioned. Chip Trainin was the third. And then it's like, and Dallin will get in there, and we'll see if we can get Evan Pryor in there. But it sure seemed to me, and to you as well, there's a top 3, there's a pecking order there, and it was boom, 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 and Dallin Hayden.
Yeah, and it was said in a way that they don't release a depth chart, but I think verbally, he released a depth chart, and there was not an or between any of those names.
Yeah.
It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just the way he said it. And maybe we're reading too much into it, but that's sort of what it has seemed like it has been the way everyone's talked about it this fall. So it feels like there's probably that, again, probably not a coincidence.
Yeah, and that's how we saw it during practice. It would be Chip Trainum repping ahead of Dallin Aiden. And of course, there's a separation between Mayan and anybody below him, and there's a tiny separation between Travion and Mayan. So it's like it fit exactly what we had seen during camp and everything we had heard. And you can't get anybody to say anything bad about Travion Henderson right now, or not even critical. And not that everything is pie in the sky or whatever, but everybody's really, really happy, including Travion himself, with how camp has gone and how he's looking.
Yeah, I think he, coming off of last year, was not happy with how that year ended and not happy with how that back half of the year really went for him, just dealing with all those injuries. It feels very man on a mission. This is potentially a contract year for him and a chance to really get back to the trajectory. The freshman year was so good, and then it was unquestionably a step back last year. And the injuries are the very obvious why there, but you have one more opportunity to potentially put together, get yourself back on the trajectory it looked like you were on in 2021. And it seems like he's doing all of the things that would put him back on that trajectory. A couple other true freshmen, we mentioned Carnell Tate as guys who were potentially going to be in the mix coming up this weekend. Arvell Reese on special teams, Malik Hartford in the secondary, and there's another Alex Gleitman name for you. How about that? And Luke Montgomery on the offensive line. And we keep hearing Luke Montgomery's name. And I have kind of been going, yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, like, he's looking good. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, I get it. But you're not like, when you say, you keep saying his name when you talk about right tackle, but you don't really mean this year, right? You mean like for the future. It sure sounds like Luke Montgomery is going to play. He's not starting. Josh Farr is starting right tackle, but it sure as heck sounds like Luke Montgomery is going to play meaningful snaps. Not first quarter snaps, but snaps when it's not 63-2 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how that works out. And as Ryan Day was going through these freshmen, he didn't mention Luke Montgomery at first, and somebody's like, well, and Luke Montgomery's like, oh yeah, Luke's playing. Like at this point, I don't even need to talk about him anymore because just assume that I am mentioning him, even when I'm not using my words to mention him.
All right, and we have two more true freshmen to talk about, but we're going to get back to that in a minute because we have a super chat.
Brian Leger, does Travion Henderson still fall over from a gust of wind?
Michigan fan.
Yes. I'm going to guess that Travion Henderson ends up with a substantially better rushing yardage total, yards per carry total, touchdown total than a year ago, just because he's going to be healthy. I mean, he has been a very, very effective running back for Ohio State in the past. I'm going to guess that will return again this year.
Yeah, I bet he could stay upright, even in a northwestern type of wind this year.
So let's talk about a couple of other true freshmen. Arvell Reese on special teams, expected to play on Saturday. That's intriguing because he came in this summer, and he's someone who was listed as a linebacker. They've had him working at defensive end a little bit. If you're playing on special teams, you're probably covering kickoffs, or you're blocking for kickoffs or something. I mean, that is you don't typically see defensive ends in a special teams role like that. So that's really intriguing to me. Just athletically, what is he doing? Because you typically on punt coverage, it's a lot of linebackers and safeties, and you don't typically see defensive ends. And they've had him. We'll see where he actually ends up. But for someone who's already viewed as maybe a bigger player than a linebacker, that was like that's pretty interesting.
It was interesting listening to, I think, Jim Knowles talking about why they moved him, and it's just because he just attacks and he goes and he's all effort and he's violent, and it's almost like we need to get him away from the linebackers and let's just get him with the defensive ends, let him go get the quarterback. He's and it's one of those things where just go do this thing. Don't worry about reading and this or that, or linebacker is just too much right now, and he's excelling just doing the thing. So they're going to go let him do the thing, but first see what he does on special teams. And if he's running down on kickoffs and have no idea if he is, I mean, there are so many collisions on kickoff that have nothing to do with the returner. if you see number 20 out there, just watch and see if there are any of those collisions.
All right. Last true freshman that was mentioned, and this is a guy who, again, this was another name that Alex Kleitman mentioned weeks ago as a guy who had really been a standout in camp. That's Malik Hartford. He is a safety. He was in this spring, so this is not, a complete out of nowhere summer arrival like Arvell Reese, but he is someone who you've kind of heard good things about a little bit, and it sounds like he's not just in the mix to maybe play a little bit in the fourth quarter. He sounds like he's another guy who's in that mix to play like real meaningful snaps at some point. And do you think it's because he helped Ryan Day win a bet?
Yeah. He came into spring or winter, I believe, at 169, thereabouts, 169 pounds. And Ryan Day made a bet with Jim Knowles that Hartford would be at 190 by the time fall camp rolled around. And Knowles was like, I'll take that bet. And he came in at 192. And so Day won that one. And this is just a guy who is every step of the way. Day said, you see him on film. Yeah, you see this violent. He's active. He's a big hitter. But then you get him here and you realize everything else that he can do. Just the seriousness, the studiousness, the understanding, the instincts, all of that. And so he's in a three-way battle still for that free safety spot with Josh Proctor and Jihad Carter. I thought it was interesting that Knowles was very truthful. Like, yes, it is a concern that you don't know who the guy is right now at free safety. Anytime coaches can say whatever they want. Anytime you don't have an established starter at one spot, there is going to be some concern, but they like all the options they have.
Yeah, they have, you have a guy who is a veteran but hasn't played at Ohio State in a meaningful snap yet, and that's Jihad Carter. You've got Josh Proctor, who's been around for, this is his sixth year, right? Seventh year, sixth year? Sixth. And then you've got the true freshman. So it's three very different guys in very different points in their careers. I'm sure they would really love to have that sorted out. You're going up against a true freshman, a redshirt freshman quarterback. We don't know which Indiana quarterback it's going to be, but it's going to be one of the true redshirt freshmen for Indiana. So, this is probably not the week that catches up with you if it ends up being an issue. But I'm sure after watching Sam Hartman last weekend, I'm sure they would like to know who the adjuster is going to be, because that's kind of that apex of that defense. And as a safety-driven defense, as we've heard once or twice, that is a position where, boy, it feels like that might now replace offensive line and quarterback as the biggest question mark on this team.
Yeah, and I think I've said that for a week or so now. Kevin?
Super chat, Omar Austin. I think you guys should always wear matching shirts. #twinning and winning.
Yes, Tony and I both wearing gray shirts today. We planned this. It's
our wives planned it. I don't pick my clothes.
I noticed we got our credentials today, and I just had taken they have a picture of you on there, and I noticed I'm wearing a blue shirt on there. So I can't wait until people look very closely at the credential and complain about that all season. It's gonna be great.
I will remind them.
Got to have something for people to comment on.
Nice blue credential, Tom.
All right, we have another super chat.
Another one from Brian Legere. Day fumbles a quarterback battle when Jim nailed it. Oh my.
Jim who?
Well, I'll tell you this.
Harbaugh?
Jim Harbaugh.
Okay, yeah.
It would be very easy to nail a quarterback competition when one of the quarterbacks is Cade McNamara and the other is J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, that one last year.
We called that one.
Yeah, last year, as soon as they said, here's what we're going to do, Tony and I, and the plan last year was, J.J. McCarthy's going to start one game and Cade McNamara is going to start the other one. And Tony and I both said, well, here's what's going to happen. Cade McNamara has the tougher of the two games, so J.J. McCarthy's going to look better, which, of course, they want to start J.J. McCarthy. So
why couldn't Jim Harbaugh just be a man about it?
Yeah.
And start the guy he wanted?
Yeah, that's eventually he did.
Super chat, Omar Austin. Where does Martinez end up in the shuffle? Transfer?
Cam Martinez, where does he end up in the shuffle? And, he's been at nickel. We've seen him there. It sounds like that's Sonny Styles' spot. And if it's not Sonny Styles' spot, it sounds like maybe that's Jordan Hancock's spot. So, there's going to be a little bit of a rotation there. I think Hancock's going to probably start on the outside, and then, but you might see him in the nickel in certain situations, and maybe that's a third and 15, and he's the nickel, and then Knowles talked about, hey, you put a dime package out there, and then, and maybe Sonny Styles is playing closer to the line of scrimmage in that situation. It feels like they have, with the number of cornerbacks they have and everyone being healthy so far and the number of safeties they have, and the ability that you have, and, they've called Sonny Styles a Swiss Army knife and a secret weapon and all that kind of stuff. The thing famously about Swiss Army knives, Tony, is you lose the toothpick. But the other thing that's famous about Swiss Army knives is you can do a bunch of stuff with them. And so having a Sonny Styles out there, it feels like he's probably staying out there, but he's maybe being asked to do different things in different situations.
Yeah, and just in terms of the number of safeties that they have and the depth they have, I'm old enough to remember Ohio State playing in a national championship game when they made it with Marcus Hooker being their starting safety. So the level.
How'd that go?
Well, that game did not go well. But yeah, so I asked Knowles, when Jordan Hancock moves to nickel, where does Sonny go? And he's like, well, we can make him a deep safety, we can make him a linebacker. So I think that's going to be some of the fun of this defense. And I do expect, third and long, you move Hancock inside, but they will also rotate those corners. So Davison Igbinosun, they'll all be playing outside. I think it'll be a little bit reminiscent of what Kerry Combs used to do with three corners, but then they'll do some different things with nickel and. To not necessarily protect Sonny Styles on passing downs, but to put him in other areas of use.
Yep. One other interesting note from Jim Knowles, he was asked about Matt Guerrieri, who was on his staff at Duke and then was also on staff here with him last year, who is now Indiana's defensive coordinator. And, Knowles was asked about, so it seems like this was just reporters asking questions to make coaches nervous was kind of the theme of the day. And he was, asked seems like he would know a lot about your defense and, know a lot about your offense now. And so that's kind of an interesting storyline to watch. But, he was also asked about Kyle McCord. And what was so funny to me was he the reporter asked him, who was Bill Rabinowitz of the Dispatch, asked him, so now with Kyle being named the starter, what have you seen out of him in fall camp? And Knowles turns to Jerry Emig, the SID, and goes, he's not tricking me, is he? They've really, because he didn't know that Ryan Day had gone in and announced it. So it just, to me, it felt like Ryan Day coming out and cracking a joke right at the top. Yeah. Jim Knowles cracking a joke. I mean, they know there's a job to do, and they know they've talked about winning game one being a goal this year. So they know that's important to get on the right foot and win a Big Ten game to start the season. But it felt a lot looser than sometimes these game week press conferences can feel. And, I don't want to read too much into that, but it did you get the sense that, maybe there's just, I don't know, a little bit of a sense of relief that, okay, now you have an answer on the quarterback. Now you feel pretty good about the offensive line. You kind of get the sense maybe they're feeling pretty okay about things right now.
Yeah, I think right now Jim Knowles is probably more worried about the free safety situation. So, but I think he said Kyle McCord just gives everybody confidence. Everybody feels good about him. Everybody likes him. He doesn't make mistakes. He's cool, calm, collected was the phrase he kept using, and just makes everybody feel confident. All of the coaches have confidence in him. So I think they're kind of reassured by the decision. And now you just move on. Now, like you said, it's settled. They like both guys. But now they have a plan, and now I can just get back to worrying about the defense.
All right, so we got a super chat, Kevin.
Omar Austin, gun to head, better pumpkin spice flavor, Starbucks or Dunkin'?
I don't drink any coffee, and I would never drink any kind of pumpkin spice. It's not even a real thing. It's not even a real food. It's just it doesn't come from pumpkins.
Yeah, I think it's a nutmeg kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess I have probably had a pumpkin spice coffee at some point in my life, but I couldn't tell you that I've had it from either of those places.
I was at Kroger the other day, and I saw that there's a pumpkin spice Cheerios now, and we got to end the show.
Don't get us demonetized. Kevin, do we have any questions we want to get through?
Yes, we do. Billy Tuesday, and somehow Devin Brown has morphed into Lamar Jackson for some fans.
Yeah, so let's see. I think that there is always the sense that the backup, the unknown, you can dream on the unknown. Hey, listen, We all saw Kyle McCord throw multiple incompletions against Akron 2 years ago, so therefore he can't be any good. Have you ever seen Devin Brown throw multiple incompletions?
I have not.
Oh, well, how about that?
Yeah.
And I think there has been enough of a split throughout the course of the why am I waving on camera? There's been enough of a split and enough different opinions through the course of fall camp that I think, depending on who you talk to, you might get different answers. Now, I think we live in a time where strong, definitive opinions rule the day. And if I talk to someone who says this guy is the better option, well, then this guy's the better option, and it must be a big conspiracy if he's not the one who's starting. And so, you could also talk to people who had the opposite opinion. There were, in fact, people in the building who had the opposite opinion, and those are the people who made the decision. So, I think I don't really buy into the idea that this was all like, well, we're gonna just sort of appease everyone and make this decision. You're starting your best quarterback.
Yeah.
And the guy who they feel is the best quarterback right now is Kyle McCord. And we'll see. We also have heard lots of times, hey, practice is not games, scrimmage is not games. If someone that, I don't know that everyone's 100% confident that this is absolutely the best guy. It's possible that, the lights come on and it just doesn't translate, or that Devin Brown comes out and boy, he is a game day player. And there are guys who are like that, but yeah, I've seen a lot of, I can't believe Ryan Day caved into yada, yada, yada. And I don't think that's probably what actually happened.
You've charted everything. You've seen everything. You've spoken about guys. Both guys agreed that both quarterbacks agreed that Kyle McCord won the job. Coaches are fine with it. You'll see on the field, and if things change on the field, then go with the next guy. But I don't think you need to tie yourself to one guy before you actually see them on the field. And if you're already against somebody, then this was never about the quarterbacks or whatever. It's just like you're trying to be right about something when there's no need. You can just watch and find out.
An online proxy fight for people only listening to one side of the debate. And well, I'm just glad, Tony, this isn't a broader metaphor for anything in society today. All right, so we are going to wrap it up right now. Thank you guys all for joining us. We appreciate it. We will be back on Wednesday night. We'll have interviews with Ohio State players. I don't think we've gotten a list of names yet on that, but
just some suggestions of who we might get. Kyle McCord would not be one of those.
Okay, so we'll be talking to some of the Buckeyes, probably not Kyle McCord, on Wednesday night. Probably be back with some kind of a live show or tape show after that, and then Thursday. But we are heading into the heart of game week. Thursday, we'll be talking to Ryan Day for kind of a wrap up, the 10-minute lightning round where we just kind of get a little touch base with him towards the end of the week. And then we are headed off to Bloomington and covering the first Buckeye game of the year. Can't wait. It is really looking forward to that. And, get to, after all of the talking and all of the speculation, we get to see it all on the field. And you do too. And you can also see it at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We have a fantastic team of insiders. I mentioned a couple times, hey, Alex Kleitman's been pretty dead on with some stuff during fall camp. That's interesting. Mark Givler and as Alex covering recruiting. Lots of news on that front as well. Tony, Kevin, and I covering the team. Our team of X's and O's gurus, keeping you informed and making you a smarter football fan, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.